Hello everyone, Amia here. Today we're going to be talking about everything that I absolutely love in a romance book. And this is a video that I used to see a lot when I first discovered BookTube. A lot of booktubers would talk about the kind of like tropes and moments and little like character quirks that they loved in each genre that they liked. But I haven't really seen that going around very much. And I wanted to do it just so that people have an understanding of why I like certain books more than I like others. I think that I might do a separate video of ranking popular tropes. Let me know if that's something that you want to see. On that note, let's get started. Off strong, we're going to go with dual POVs, the two POVs of the main characters. I want to say that this is an absolute must, but I know that I have enjoyed single POV books. That being said, though, I would much prefer if a romance book has the POVs of both characters. Like, I don't really want to read from the perspective of one person for over 300 pages. I just don't. Like, even if I really like the character that the POV is in, it's still not enough for me. I feel like in order for a romance book to be 5 stars, I need to see the two of them pining. I need to see the moment that they each fall in love. I don't want to assume. I don't want to guess. I don't want to be seeing things from one person's perspective. I want to see that mutual pining. I want to see them both debating why they think the other person is reacting certain ways, what they might think of a certain scenario. It's just so much more enjoyable. Also, I think the single POV runs the risk of not liking the book entirely if you don't like the character. And I'll give you a very solid example. So in Emily Henry's People We Meet on Vacation, I did not like Poppy. I did not connect to Poppy. I thought that she was insufferable. And I really think that I would have enjoyed the book a whole lot more if we had Alex's perspective. Because the part of the book that I enjoyed the most was the end, when we were hearing Alex talk. And it's the same for even things like Happy Place. Like, I didn't want to be in Harriet's head for the entire story. And I feel like, again, if we had Wynn's perspective, it might have changed things for me. Like, I finished Happy Place thinking that Wynn did not have that much of an interest in being in a relationship with Harriet, despite everything that he said, despite every sacrifice that Harriet made. I still don't think he was that interested. And that has a lot to do with the fact that there was a gap with how I think he felt about certain things. Like, I still didn't understand why he left her the way he did. I still didn't get why he was doing certain things. It just felt very unsatisfactory, primarily because I just didn't like the story, but also because I just did not get his end of everything. I don't get why he did what he did. I don't think he was that vulnerable or that honest or that forthcoming. His POV would really have helped. Give me both of them. Why is it so hard? And it's especially helpful if they don't have very similar personalities as well, because it's fun. It's just so much fun to read about things from two people's perspectives, and I think it's just much more revealing. So obviously, I think it might be double the work, but I always think it's worth it. Second thing I like, caretaking scenes. I cannot stress this enough. I love a caretaking scene, whether that is because the person has had an accident, whether they're sick. I just enjoy reading about people looking after the people that they love in whatever way that they can, and trying as much as possible to lighten their load or reduce their burden or try to make them feel better or cheer them up. It's always so sweet. And I think caretaking scenes are always so tender, because I think it shows that there is trust within the relationship. Somebody's vulnerable enough to let you take care of them. And I think it opens up the dialogue, because for some reason, whenever I read a book and they're caretaking scenes, I feel like after the scenes are over and they get back to regular life and normality, you can see the barriers that have been broken as a result of that taking place. It's something I always want. It's something that I welcome. And there's usually very soft moments, and there are usually quite a few nicknames thrown in there. Sometimes there are confessions because they're slightly out of it as well. I just really love everything that a caretaking scene brings. And I'm a caretaking scene stan for sure. I understand why it has the hold that it does on romance readers, because they're so sweet, and how could you not? Next up, we have nicknames. I absolutely love a nickname. This is quite a divisive topic, because I know that some people prefer if people just use the person's first names, and some people really genuinely don't like a nickname in general. But I love a nickname. I love the classics. I love a darling. I love a sweetheart. I love a baby. I don't like a babe though. That's one thing I don't like. For some reason, I don't think babe is that romantic. But I also like unique ones as well. I like when, like, say one of the MCs speaks a different language and they have a nickname for the person that they love in that language, or if it's related to an experience or even if it's something unique like cabbage or something, just something that feels special, something that connects them, something that feels like it's just for them. A nickname makes you feel like they're more intimate. So I really like the addition of a nickname. I don't like certain nicknames, so I understand why it puts people off, like Little One and Violence, and there's just some nicknames that don't need to be there. But I think if it makes sense within the context and it's special and the person feels good, I really, really like it. Even if they're not, even, you know how you have that trope where, one person starts calling the other person a nickname and then they pretend not to like it, but they secretly do. That's really sweet. I find it's very endearing. And especially when it gets to the point where they actually find out that the person that they're calling actually really likes it, I think it's really, really sweet. So, yeah, I love a nickname. Another thing I love is amazing side characters. And what I mean by this is I read so many books where side characters feel like props for the main characters. They don't feel real, they don't feel like actual people. And I understand that a book is not about the side characters, but I like when the book makes the character feel like a real person, where we get a little bit of a backstory, a little bit about what connects the two characters, even especially when they're friends. Because I guess if somebody's your sibling, we know why you're connected, we know why you get along. You know what I mean? With family, you don't really choose family. So you kind of understand between siblings why they have this connection. But when it's between friends, you can only understand what makes them connect based on the kinds of conversations that they're having within the book, and also just knowing a little bit about the side characters, a little bit of their backstories. What are their hobbies? What are their personality traits? Why are these two best friends? And I think that's what makes an amazing side character. Because sometimes in a romance series, you have little descriptions here and there because the author is likely going to bring out a book about this person. So the details that they're providing are in an attempt to set them up. Whereas I really like it when that they don't really plan to write a series, they're just explaining it because they truly believe in having quality characters, even when they're not the main character. So I love an amazing side character. I feel like a few books that do it well, I would say the Indulgence series by Lydia Gastro does it well. I would say And Then He Kissed Me by CM Daniels does it well. I feel like Logan Sage Adams does side characters very well. Who else do I think does? I'm trying to think about standalone books in particular, because I feel like that's where you can truly see if an author cares about their side characters. Because in a series, that most of the time they're motivated by wanting to get people to connect to these characters in hopes that they will buy the next book in the series. I'm trying to avoid series books for that reason. I think that Cat Sebastian does that very well. The side characters intrigue you. So even if you don't get a story about them, there's still some part of you that finds them interesting. And almost, that feeling of wishing that you had a book, but just being satisfied if you don't get it. That's kind of what I'm hinting at. Next, full lives and hobbies. I like the two MCs to have lives outside of each other. And what I mean by that is I've read several books in which I feel like everything about the MC's life revolves around the person that they're in a relationship with or they're falling in love with. And I just don't think it's conducive to a healthy relationship. You have to have things outside of your relationship: hobbies, a job, friends, family. I like when characters feel like full-fledged human beings. And I think oftentimes, we as a society, we put romance above all else, and we kind of ignore every other thing that makes us whole, that makes us human. And that's why oftentimes when somebody has a breakup, it feels really earth shattering because they realize how much effort and how much energy that they had put into a relationship only for it to fail. And then they had neglected everything else. And so that's why I like when characters feel like full-fledged people, and also it makes them connect, because I feel like if you don't have hobbies, you don't have friends, you don't have interests, you don't have opinions, how do the conversations flow? There has to be something that keeps you guys talking. And that's another thing I really like. I like conversation between the two characters. I like them to be able to connect or even like respectfully disagree, and it's very hard to do that when you don't have a life outside of your relationship. So that's something I really enjoy. I also love calling issues out. And what I mean by that is like when the two MCs are comfortable calling out their love interest in a healthy way, in a respectful way, in a way that acknowledges the issues without degrading them. And I think a book that did it well was in the Scoring Chances series by Avon Gale. There was talk about one of the characters having disordered eating or potentially an eating disorder. And the other character obviously notices, various patterns of behavior and quite unhealthy habits. And obviously, he's quite worried for the character. And I love the fact that not only did he go to seek help, because he was so worried about what was going to happen. So not only did he go and seek professional advice about how to approach the matter, but another thing that he did that I really enjoyed was tailoring his like confrontation to the personality of his partner. So he actually sat down and thought about what the most productive way of calling his partner out for it would be, and he did it and it was effective. And what he thought would happen happened. That's what I really like about romance. I feel like what it really boils down to is thoughts. There is much more to this relationship beyond hyper romantic moments or sleeping together. And I think in those moments, it shows that they're really, really connected and they are actually genuinely worried for that person's safety, that person's well being, outside of what it means for the relationship, just genuinely being worried about the person as a whole and wanting them to be healthy and wanting them to be the best versions of themselves. So I like when characters are able to call each other out because everybody has shortcomings and insecurities and things that they do wrong. And not acknowledging it brings about resentment most of the time, but then addressing it and being able to move forward and knowing that the person that you're with is not a sycophant or a pushover and they can actually call you out for the things that you do wrong in a respectful manner. I think it leads to great relationships in general, but also in romance books. One of the things that makes a romance book a great romance book is that you believe that the characters will go the distance. And I find it very hard to believe that people who are unable to have open, honest conversations can go the distance. I mean, they might be in terms of longevity, but in terms of quality, very questionable. I like a fashionable MC, right? I like a fashionable female character without question, right? But I feel like that's normal. It's normal for women to take pride in their appearance. It's normal for women to be outwardly fashionable, to acknowledge that they like clothes or they like fashion magazines or they like, I don't know, Vogue, or they keep up with trends and things. I feel like that's quite commonplace both in society and in books. But I feel like it's very striking when the male character is the one that likes fashion, who likes to look nice, to dress nice. And I'll give you specific characters. Charlie from Book Lovers talks about fashion. He talks about a capsule wardrobe. And I think it was the very first time that I had heard a man talk about owning a capsule wardrobe and what goes into it and the benefit of it and why he loves it. Time to Shine by Rachel Reed. I remember Casey really liking fashion and taking his partner to get like a whole makeover and really judging the outfits. I think also Kat Sebastian in the Highwaymen series, both Percy and Rob, they have a connection that I won't spoil, but both Percy and Rob liked fashion. And Percy was very, very much outgoing and gregarious about it. And he really doesn't care what people think. So he was very willing to acknowledge it. I think Rob was a little bit shyer about admitting it to Marianne that he really liked clothes. Because I remember they were having a conversation about money and what he spends his money on. And it came up that he spends it on nice clothes. And she was teasing him for it. And he's like, yeah, I like a nice jacket. And he was really, really bashful and sweet about it. And I thought it was really cute. I just really like that fashion element, especially when it's guys. Because the quality that I find generally attractive in people is when they're able to push past stereotypes to kind of do whatever they want and be like, I don't really care what you think. This is what I like, and there's nothing wrong with it. And I don't really care what society has told me. I love a fashionable man. It's just like, guys, there's a lot of unfashionable men going around. There should be space for fashionable male characters, okay? And I love it. Every time I see it, I'm like, I know that's right. I live for it. You better admit that you like clothes and you better admit to wanting to look nice, not only for your partner, but for yourself. Another thing I love in a romance book is seeing them juggle real life, like their jobs. Like, when they're having a conversation about meeting up and then they talk about why they can't meet up, either because they have a meeting or they have a job to do or like work is interfering. I like when you can see real life bleed through fiction because realistically, when you're relationship balancing life, you're not always going to have the capacity to see your partner and you have to sort of improvise, or even if it's like a long distance relationship. I just love seeing work and real life interfere with their relationship. We're not all on our own clocks. When you read like billionaire romances, it's never really the case for them. Realistic scenarios kind of are not their thing, but I feel like when characters have normal jobs and normal constraints, I really like to see that in a book. Also, like them doing everyday things, so like doing the weekly food shop or picking up dry cleaning or going to a family dinner. I love seeing those in romance books because that's just real life. I realize saying this, I really like romance books to be quite realistic. I don't really connect to unrealistic scenarios in romance books, to be honest. They're fun, but I always end up taking it like fun, not really ascribing any sort of importance to it. But when they have those scenarios where they're living everyday life and having to balance the demands of being a fully functioning member of society with their relationship, I really, really like it. I find it really charming. I also like mutual worship. Again, this is where the dual POV comes in. I want to see you guys worship one another, okay? I don't really see why you're getting into a relationship, but you're not willing to do that. Like, you could have just stayed single. But if you're going to be in a committed relationship, a committed monogamous relationship, I must see you guys worship the ground each other walks on. Because why not? Why treat your partner like every other person when you could treat them like someone different, someone special, somebody unique? Like, why are we pretending like your partner is every other person? I'm not here for that, especially when it's like attention that the other person has never experienced before. Like, they've never experienced somebody just being so dedicated to them and so loving and so all in. I really like it. Talia Hibbert does worshipping very well, as does Kat Sebastian, as does JJ Mulder. I think it just works, especially it has to be mutual though. It can't be one-sided. I think it has to be mutual. It doesn't have to be the exact same way. Like, sometimes it could present as like smart, but also, I think it could also present as just everyday things, looking after somebody, picking up their dry cleaning, making sure they're okay, calling to see if they've eaten, just things like that. I think is really, really cute. This is specific to LGBTQIA plus books, but a nice coming out scenario, because honestly, people in the LGBTQIA plus community go through a lot. Okay, so when they're able to have a nice coming out moment with their friends or their family, I always find it so heartening and so, like, my heart most of the time feels like it's about to burst, just because of how sweet those moments are. So an example would be "And Then He Kissed Me" by CM Daniels. When the characters come out to their friends, and their friends, I especially like when the friends have always suspected but have just continued to love them regardless and just waited for them to say something. So I remember when they told their friends that they liked men, and their friends were just like, "Oh, we've always known, it's fine." Or they were like, "Oh, okay, that's fine, we still love you, it's not that big of a deal." I just love moments like that. Or when they tell their parents, and maybe their parents are taken aback, but still have that very grounding love for their children. And they're like, "We will support you any way you want. We'll be there for you. We want to meet your partner." I just love a good coming out to your friends and family story. It makes me so happy, just because I know that reality is not quite like that for so many people. And so it warms my heart. I'm about to get emotional, so I'm trying not to, but I love a good coming out moment. I think it always makes my heart very full. So I love those. But I also like it when it's quite comedic. Like when, you know, you can see the character come out to somebody and they've already known, and then they're trying to figure out whether or not they should say it explicitly, or when they just come out and be like, "Yeah, like, who did you think you were deceiving?" That's always really funny. When they're like, "Oh my god, mom, I like men," and she's like, "Yeah, but like, I never thought you like girls. Anyways, I was just waiting for you to say something." Then the guy's just like, "You could have said something this whole time." And she's like, "I was just waiting for you to say something." Really love those. I love a good laugh out loud moment. I love good banter between the characters. So if an author is able to make me laugh out loud, even though I find it quite embarrassing, especially if I'm in public, I still like the fact that they're able to do that. I think it's a very specific superpower where the banter between characters makes me laugh out loud, because it's one thing to find it funny and it's another thing to actually externally project that. So I love, love, love when I'm able to just laugh out loud. I like communication and boundaries, to be honest. Again, you will not find a stronger proponent for boundaries than me. I find it extremely easy to respect people's boundaries. I like when people respect my boundaries. I like when that is reflected in the books that I'm reading, especially between love interests. I feel like boundaries should be commonplace in society, and it's a tragedy that they are not. I think boundaries show that you respect someone, that you see them as a person, that you see them worthy of respect. And I think it's just important. Like, I find it very hard to get along with people who don't respect boundaries. And I feel like I would find it very difficult to like a book with a character who does not respect boundaries, because I just feel like it's a fundamental thing that I just can't get past. Like, if you can't have boundaries, I can't be around you, I can't like you genuinely. And I think that really reflects in books, especially when one of the characters or both of the characters have been through trauma. and they have certain boundaries in place to protect them and to make them feel safe. When they have their separate individual boundaries, but also they come together to devise new ones and to talk about why they like certain things. I also like consent. A lot of people think consent is not sexy, and I'm just like, how? I've read so many books that do consent so well, and honestly, I think I might do a series about books that do consent not only in a good way but in a way that didn't actually kill the mood, because I know that there's this impression out there that like when you ask for consent in the middle of an intimate moment, it kills the mood. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't think so. It's a practice and you kind of have to know how to do it well, but it can be done. I don't think it's that hard to do, really. Again, communication is everything. You're either communicating or you're not. I just absolutely love consent. And when it's explicitly stated and when it's also subtle, consent for me is king. Consent is necessary. If there's no consent, I can't get behind it. When there's no consent involved, when it's not explicit, or when there's like a backhanded way to going about it, it makes me feel icky and gross. I love when romance books defy stereotypes, and it could be in terms of things like fashion, which I've talked about, but it could also be in terms of maybe the guy cooking or the girl being the higher earner or them choosing different things than what society would expect of them, or just vulnerability in different ways, especially with the male characters. Because I feel like in a lot of romances, a lot of authors treat male characters like robots, and they're expected to be strong and macho and unfeeling, but also caring. I like when they're able to be soft, and I like when they're able to be vulnerable, whether it's with their love interest. I especially love male MC that are soft, not like even like in a secret way, just more like they know that what they require in a relationship is a bit of softness, a bit of like, even if they like to be slightly babied sometimes, I quite like it. I like when people can defy stereotypes, because for one thing, it means that they're not hiding behind what they truly want, which then makes people more comfortable to be themselves. But I also think it takes a lot of guts to defy a stereotype. Like you have to be able to actually consciously block people out to be able to do that. And I think it's really attractive when that happens, when an author isn't afraid to play with what being a man or a woman in society, what that could look like. So I love that in a romance book. I love when issues are properly acknowledged and they're able to work through them. You know, when you read a book and there's like a major issue and something happens and it either goes unaddressed or is swept under the rug or is resolved really quickly. I like efficiency, so I don't like it to drag on longer than it needs to. But at the end of the day, I feel like if something happened and it's major, people need to acknowledge it. Like I remember Goal Lines and First Times by Eden Finley and Saxon James. I believe that was number 3 with Cohen and Seth. Seth actually does cross the line and does something that is actually objectively wrong, even though he was not doing it with malintent. Especially because Cohen tends to be the jokey one and the one that people slightly take advantage of because they think he's not that smart. So I like the fact that it was probably acknowledged what Seth did. And he was like, it's completely unacceptable and we have to work through things. Another thing I really like is talking and good chat. I love characters to talk, whether it's hobbies or interests or family backgrounds. I just like when they have a nice chatty session. It could be about anything at all. The topic is not particularly relevant to me. It just matters that they're talking and getting to know each other and actually getting to see each other in a way that they wouldn't have if they were not having in-depth conversation. I love a yap session. Even when one person is slightly more quiet and the other one is yap express, I love it. I just like talking because I like to talk. So it's nice to see that reflected in a book. And it's also really nice when the guy is chatty, because I feel like stereotypically girls are portrayed to be quite chatty while boys are quiet, subdued, not really contributing to the conversation. So I like when they're mutually just talking and it's clear that the other person is listening, because they then go on to incorporate what the person has said into the actions that they're doing for them and the way that they take care of them. I love a female character that can stand her ground. I'm not talking about the way that people stereotypically write female characters, where like she's arrogant and she doesn't listen to anybody and then she does silly things for just the purpose of doing things. I'm talking about a character that can stand her ground, especially when she's challenging the male character. I like that dynamic in a romance where they can actually go head to head in a conversation. But I also like when they can, especially the female character, where she doesn't really bend to the male character's opinions, especially if they have opposing opinions. I like that she can stand her ground, because there's just way too many female characters that just can't. And it ends up just kind of ruining things, because it's something that I see done over and over again. And it's not something I feel represents reality, because there's so many women that can and should be able to stand up to people. So I haven't found too many that I feel portray it to the level that I'm talking about, but I'm always on the hunt to find books about female characters that can stand their ground and know their shit, know that they know their shit, and be confident enough to portray that. One of my favorite female characters is Danny. Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert. Honestly, she's my queen. Okay. When I talk about female protagonists that I absolutely love and adore, Danny is who comes to mind every time first, or even Nora from Book Lovers. Like, I just love female characters like that. Obviously, they're not immune from having flaws. They have their flaws, they have their shortcomings, but they know exactly who they are. And it's so hard to get a female character that just knows who she is and is unapologetic about who she is and what she wants out of life. One, strong female characters, but also couples that can go head to head in a respectful way. They can challenge each other. I like a good challenge. Like, you shouldn't be a doormat in any relationship, regardless of gender. I feel like, so I like when they're able to have that dynamic while still maintaining respect and consideration. Another thing I really like is like a rival situation. If it's done very well, let's say that they're colleagues or there's like some sort of like competitive element between them, whether it is they're playing sports or whatever. I like a competitive element between couples. I like when they don't really let each other win. Like, if somebody's winning, they're winning fair and square because they deserve it. It's not because somebody's like, oh, she's my girlfriend or he's my boyfriend, I'm gonna let him win. Don't let somebody win. Let them win on their own merits and call them the badass that they are. And so I really like it, just a bit of a competitive element, just for that little bit of angst, a little bit of drama without being outright toxic. That's when it gets annoying, when you can see it's clearly being done for dramatic purposes rather than it's a fundamental part of who they are. I don't know if this is a thing for other people, but one thing I really like is intimate touch and intimate moments that are not outrightly sexual or are not leading up to a smut scene. And what I mean by that is when it's acknowledged. Like, I remember in We Could Be So Good by Cat Sebastian, it's just them going about their daily lives. Maybe Andy's passing Nick as he's cooking in the kitchen, and then he just like brushes his hand across his back, or Nick is going to the library and he kisses Andy on the head. Just things like that, just little moments between them that show their connection without them being outrightly like sexual in nature. I also like things like, when somebody's eating like a sandwich and then the other partner just takes the part of the sandwich that the person doesn't like because they know that they don't like it, but they know that they like the sandwich. So I think a good example would be like if a partner doesn't like tomatoes, but they like a sandwich that comes with tomatoes, and then they just have their partner eat the tomatoes. I think moments similar to that are really, really cute and really sweet. I feel like that the definition of to be loved is to be known is something that I really like to see reflected in books. I like jealousy done in a really teasing way. I don't like when jealousy gets to the point that it's toxic. And I don't even know if it's jealousy or possessiveness, but I like when there's a little bit of that, like push and pull. It's not that serious where they start like breaking things or acting irrationally, but just acknowledgement that what's that person saying. Like in One Glimpse by Lydia Gastro, when all the four guys come together, they realize the two of them, Henry and Sam, had nicknames for each other. And the way that their respective partners like scoffed at it and they're like, ugh, but they weren't super upset. Like they wouldn't have brought it up to like fight about, but they were just like, why are you calling my partner that? Why do you get to call him a nickname? What kind of history do you have? In Two Rogues Make a Right by Cat Sebastian, Martin is really like is possessive and quite jealous. He doesn't start acting out or throwing tantrums about it. He just kind of acknowledges that he likes Will all to himself and doesn't like to share Will. And those moments are really cute, especially when they're talking about it and they're actually acknowledging that I'm actually quite jealous. It's very teasing and I quite like that dynamic. Another thing, I will take a book about people with regular jobs a lot quicker than I will take a billionaire romance. I feel like I read way too many billionaire romances when I was a teenager. So by the time I reached my 20s, I was done. The billionaire thing is a bit much for me. I think reading 50 Shades of Grey kind of ruined things for me in that sense because I was like, ugh, I hate Christian Grey. Like, I don't know how anybody actually finds Christian Grey attractive. I don't know how anybody doesn't see Christian Grey for the walking red flag that he is. And I was like, Anna, you're supposed to be a smart girl. Like, what are you doing with this man? Even at the end of the third book, I was still wondering what the hell she was doing with this man. Another thing that I quite like is when there's a good relationship between the love interests and their in-laws or the parents of the person that they're in a relationship with, that is almost independent of their relationship together. Because I feel like when you're in a relationship with somebody, it's quite normal to be hanging around the parents of that person all together. But when they have a relationship that is so good that it almost feels separate to that of the one of the person who is the connection between them is really sweet. And a good example of that was Cat Sebastian's Daniel Cabot Puts Down Roots. Alex has a really good relationship with Daniel's mother. Like, she knows him so well. Like, she can talk to him and be like, yeah, Alex wouldn't do that. I remember one time Alex and Daniel were talking, and Alex was like, oh, yeah, when I see your mom on Tuesday, I'll tell her that's our shopping day and that's the day we gossip about you. I just love that relationship where they become really close with either the person's friends or the person's family. It ties into my love for found family, I think. I love found family in a romance, and I just love when it transcends even further into a genuine friendship. Obviously, it makes it harder for breaking up, but then again, if you read about a book that you really like, you don't really want the couple to break up, do you? So it all works out in the end. I love texting in a book. I like calls. We're all adults here, technically. I like an over the phone kind of smart session. I like texting, I like talking, I like, the kind of connection that can happen when you're not in the same room together, or writing letters. I love letter writing in a book. I absolutely love letters. I feel like it's a lost art, and I love when it can be incorporated into a story, especially when the person is able to like bare their soul and really go into depth, especially if the person is not very good at portraying their feelings verbally, and they can really do it when they write things down. I feel like I really like letters. So anything, letters, text, phone calls. I remember in the long game when Ilya thought something was going to happen to him, and he was basically texting Shane, and those text messages between them was so sweet. But even if the text messages are jokes, I like them as well. I think YouTube is quite, I would go into more detail, but YouTube, I think you have to be quite like conservative on here, I guess. I'm assuming you have to be. You know what I also like? I like a resistant female love interest where she knows that she's falling in love with this guy, but when it's clicking for her, she's almost disgusted with herself by how much she likes him. When a character doesn't want to admit that they are developing feelings for a guy, and then she's basically talking to somebody or thinking to herself, and she thinks something really sweet about how she can like make his life better, or how he makes her feel, or how she can do something to make him happy, and then she's like, ill. Danny was like that in Taking Him Danny Brown, where she was just so resistant to Zaf. And I was like, girl, let it go. Anybody would fall for Zaf. Like, I understand. Okay, if this is the man that you're finally going to fall for, I get that it's because of Zaf. I get why he's the one that's moving you. Okay, he's not just any man, he's Zaf. Like, at this point, we were all falling for Zaf anyways. So it's like, girl, just fall. It's okay. He'll catch you. That's a good thing about someone like Zaf. It's like, you'll fall, but he'll catch you. And that's fine. So that's what I really, really love. I also love when characters can laugh during a smut scene where they do something and it's actually funny and it doesn't take them out of the moment. It's just something that can organically be woven into the story. It's really funny. Ilya and Shane from The Long Game have a very silly dynamic that shows itself in every aspect of their lives, whether or not they're playing hockey, being with friends and family, sleeping together. It doesn't matter. Their dynamic shines through everywhere that they are. And I love the fact that it doesn't take you out of the story. You're just like, yeah, you two idiots are together. And of course, you would laugh at this very thing in this very moment. And of course, you would make fun of each other for that. I like realistic bodies as well in books. Like, I like the acknowledgement of like scars or stretch marks or wrinkles or just anything that is not a flawless toned six pack and golden body gleaming like the top of an Egyptian museum. I like it because everyone has it. And honestly, I'm surprised that people are so insecure ridden by stretch marks, because I think stretch marks are so normal that I'm just like, whenever I see stretch marks on anyone, I don't even blink an eye, because I'm just like, well, if you ever had a really big growth spurt, or I feel like stretch marks are just so normal that I don't blink twice at that. So I don't even know why anybody trips over those. If I find it so difficult to comprehend an adult having major issues with stretch marks. Oh, another thing, a lot of books don't do this and it annoys me. But I love the acknowledgement that women experience periods. Please, can we stop with like the period shame needs to end today, because it's probably one of the most normal things about being a woman. And I just need people to be including those things in the stories, whether it's craving, whether it's mood swings, whether it's taking care of people. You see, one of the very few good things about 50 Shades of Grey is I remember, I don't know if this was like fan fiction or if it was a real book, but there was acknowledgement of Anna's period, I believe. And that's really good. Even in Cat Sebastian, it was briefly mentioned in The Perfect Crimes of Marianne Hayes that she has a monthly bleed. And even though that was a historical romance where, again, it should be more taboo, I like the fact that it was mentioned because it's extremely important. it's something that affects most women all over the world, and it's a very, very normal part of our existence. And so I just don't understand why more authors don't embrace it. I love a story that can give us a good acknowledgement of a period, make a whole scene out of it, mention it in past, just do it in a way that's meaningful. I always appreciate that. So props to the authors that do that. On a side note, guys, I obviously refrain from, because I don't know YouTube's policies around this stuff. And I feel like YouTube is quite like, you need to keep things quite basic here. But I feel like if this video does well enough, I might make a more in depth, probably spicier version of this video one day. Because I feel like I left out a lot because I'm not really sure how the policies work around here. I mean, we're all technically adults here and we all read romance. So I feel like it would be nice to do that one day. So let me know if that's something that you are interested in, and I'll see how I can do that one day in the future, hopefully. Another thing I wanted to briefly talk about, since I don't think this is going to be a very long video, is how do people handle reading slumps? Because I know people like sometimes feel guilty about reading slumps and feeling bad about not being able to read a book. But I just feel like whenever I have a reading slump, I just embrace it. Sometimes I just stop reading. And I do understand that people have these feelings of failing when they're not hitting certain reading goals, but I just feel like you're a human at the end of the day. As much as you love something, sometimes you're just not in the mood because maybe you're going through something, it's a very stressful time, you just cannot, for whatever reason, read. And for me, I don't really try to force myself out of it. I take a much needed break if I need to, or I read novellas, or I read books that I've just loved. But I give myself a lot of grace when I'm going through a reading slump, and I don't force anything. So I wanted to know, how do you guys handle your reading slumps? Do you feel bad that you can't read? Especially for people who do this as a hobby, or like fellow YouTubers. What do you do? How do you handle reading slumps? I would love to know. If you've been here with me, thank you so much for watching this video. I really, really enjoy doing this. And I know that when I log off from here and I'm editing, I'm going to think of a million other things that I really like in a book that I did not mention and I forgot, because that is classic me. But thank you so much for watching. If you like what you've seen, please like, comment, and subscribe. I want to hear about everything that you like in a romance book. I will hopefully be doing a video very soon about everything I don't like, because there's always positives and negatives to every experience, and I feel like it's only right to talk about both. I would love to do a video ranking very common romance tropes. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you when I see you. Bye.